Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
How's it going?
Grand now.
Big Donald Trump fan?
Why do you ask?
We just had him on there, a clip of...
I didn't see that, no. No, I'm not a big Donald Trump fan. No, I'm not.
Right, big weekend obviously ahead, and sort of, back, the run of interprovincials continue, and we're on the brink, obviously, that Heineken Cup returning as well. So I sort of started to look at this one during the week, got quite excited by the idea of Johnson Sexton versus Joey Carberry at the Aviva tomorrow, but it looks like it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, which is disappointing. I think might be better for Munster, but they've shown Leinster in the last couple of fixtures that they're strong enough to win without him. The depth they have, and Ross Byrne, obviously, if he starts, a quality player, did really well last year. But I suppose from a fan's point of view, you want to see the best players in this fixture, and it's something that's been debated over the last number of years. Is it right? Is it wrong? I think it's right from a player management point of view, in a sense that they seem to sacrifice these fixtures now, particularly around Christmas, and not this one historically. This one usually is as full as they get. It's usually the Christmas ones that are kind of mixed and matched between in the interpros. But I was surprised Johnny Sexton was back a couple of weeks ago. Historically, the most of the internationals wouldn't start.
So they're bringing him back. They'll rest him this week.
They wouldn't get up and running till round 3 or 4. But this year they've been back a little bit earlier, and they're obviously looking at this with little opportunity to maybe rest some guys. Peter O'Mahony may not start for Munster. He started the last 3 as well.
From Carberry's point of view, is it because we don't know that he's going to start either for sure? I mean, it'd be fascinating even to see Ross Byrne against him, and just because that's sort of the battle almost for the second spot. But from Johan van Grand's point of view, is the smart thing to almost take him out of the firing line, because they're obviously very recent?
I don't know, I'm mixed on this. Obviously I haven't played for Munster for so long, and the red goggles on a little bit. Part of me says play your best team for Munster, try and go up there, get a result. They haven't won there since 2014, and they've one win in the last 7 fixtures, which is not a good return. And you want to try and go there and get the best team out in the field. Another side of me then says, well, you play Joey Carberry, will that drive on the Leinster guys a little bit more to say, well, there's a bit of niggle there that he's left us and we didn't want him to go, and he's now playing with our biggest rivals. So it's kind of mixed. It's a bit of a conundrum for Johan van Graan. I'd probably leave him out. I'd play Keithley or Jay Jahan.
For that reason. Then.
Yeah, because you probably don't want a bit of a sideshow and something that's going to inspire him a little bit more. Maybe there'd be a bit too much pressure on him. Go and play that fixture, but look, maybe he'll want that.
It's tough, isn't it? It's
depends
a tough balance,
what the individual wants himself.
Almost if you take him out, you're like, oh well, look, we don't want to get ready for that.
We're minding him, and look, he's a top quality player who maybe needs that experience, and maybe it'll benefit him. It could have a negative effect. So that's the kind of risk-reward scenario. He's someone who could win the game for Munster. He's that good that he can change a game. He's a quality player. They've Europe next week. They've Exeter away. It's a massive game for them. Are you not going to play your fly half? It's going to start next week. I think, I don't know. It's a strange one. Maybe he will start. I think the Peter O'Mahony one was probably, he may not play, just down to the number of games, and because any of the players will have to play in Europe in the next 2 weeks. It's a massive part of the season for them, and then they've Pro 14 again, and they're straight into November internationals, 4 of them this time, which is a bit longer now. Again, there'll be a bit of room to manoeuvre and change the teams there with Italy, Argentina, New Zealand and USA in that order. I think there'll be opportunities for some guys to put their hand up, but it's a busy few weeks, and Leinster probably have the luxury of making those changes, because I think they look back to the one last Christmas when they went to Limerick and won with a lot of changes, and it just goes to show how much depth they have. Yeah. But there's pressure on Munster now because they have a little bit more depth.
Well, that's the thing, like you've mentioned that point before, that the real difference maker between Leinster and Munster, particularly last season, was the depth that they had. In a weird way,
depth and quality as well. Look, they've so many good players who were involved in the Irish squad as well. So closing that gap for Munster is get more guys in the Irish team, and then then the gap narrows a little bit.
But 2 half teams going up against each other is the exact barometer of how deep your squad is. So in reality, is the way it's set up right before Europe, with with not your top talent playing, whoever's played over the last couple of weeks, with them not being available, does this actually give us an accurate representation of where these two teams are at?
It probably not. Munster's biggest problem has been their away form, the Glasgow and Cardiff game. They're now away this weekend. They've got to solve that problem quickly. They may not get the result, but they've got to play well, and they've got to really be in this fixture and in the match to take some confidence, because they're going to an incredibly difficult place next week, away to Exeter. Consistency in selection is something that we don't see a lot of it anymore, because with the depth of squads and because the amount of change that happens. Who'll play in the centres for Munster tonight? You know, Dan Goggin played there last week. He was superb, and Rory Scannell. Will Sam Arnold come back in there? Will Jaco Taute come in there? Who's going to play fly half? We have this uncertainty. I think Matheson will probably start at scrum half. He was really good last week for him. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing for both sides. But for Munster, they can't leave tomorrow with a really negative result, negative performance, I would say. Their intensity was questioned there last year a little bit when they went there. Reggie asked Peter O'Mahony that question. I think it was a fairly legitimate question, but it obviously irked Peter and frustrated him. I think it was misconstrued, the way the question was and what kind of a meaning he wanted. But I think Munster have to step up. Leinster were really good last week away in Connacht. They're robust, they're aggressive, they're physical. They've now got Sean O'Brien back in the mix. He'll probably start the game tomorrow. What a player to come back in. James Ryan is coming back. Dan Levy's coming back. When you start rattling off the names, they're incredibly consistent,
and it's going to be a sellout
performance. Yeah, it is. And I think, look, it just shows how popular the game is and how popular rugby has gone. Some people may kind of question the excitement and the hype around it. Like this fixture in my time was, and Rob Kearney said it this week, and he played in a lot of those in his earlier days. There was a lot of hatred. There was a lot of the build-ups were massive. And
would that be spoken about, Quinny? Would that be like an overt thing in the dressing room?
Well, you didn't want to lose because there was a massive emphasis on obviously the rivalry between any teams in soccer, GA, whatever, local clubs playing each other at any level. You don't want to lose. You want to be the ones that are going for a few pints that night and meeting the fans or the supporters or whatever in the local town. That you don't want to be the one that has lost it, and that drives you on a bit more. Obviously, this is professional sport, and a lot of these guys play for the national team. Some of them have played probably for Ireland before they've played in one of these fixtures. You know what I mean? Look at Jordan Larmour. He was playing for Ireland last year before probably he experienced. So he doesn't really know anything about. He likes all probably the Munster guys because they're teammates of Ireland and stuff. It's a good.
Bit more collegiate almost.
To be fair, Adrian, I'm not saying it was right that there should be. It was just the way it was for us. We came into the game with a historic kind of rivalry, even in the old Interpros. It was just Leinster-Munster was the biggest game, and for them and probably for us as well.
And how much would you engage with that as a group before you took them on? Or was it just something that manifested itself on the pitch, or were you in the dressing room beforehand going, we hate these shower up? Yeah.
And they'd probably be saying the same about us. Yeah, a little bit, that was there. Whereas probably more what they got to do to perform and get right on the field. Now, I think, look, it's so much more advanced now, technically, and game plans and structures and all that kind of stuff. But I suppose they still go hard at each other. It's still physical and still intense, and they don't want to lose. So I think it'd be unfair, and any of the players playing tomorrow saying, well, they don't really care as much anymore.
If it was a Heineken Cup semi-final or a final, I think that edge would be there, right?
Yeah, I think, but even in the Pro 14 semi-final last year, it was hard, it was intense, it was physical, but there's no kind of sideshows, and which is a good thing, to be fair. I'm not saying there should be. It was just the way it was. The rugby was a little bit different. It was a bit more physical. There was a bit more pushing and shoving. That's not to say we didn't get on well when we got off the field. Like, we all got on pretty well, but I think Rob Kearney's point this week was there's probably more of a bond there now. They're kind of growing up together. They're together with each other, with Ireland a lot. They're on tours. We did a lot of that stuff as well, but they're probably hanging around with each other. There's probably no kind of Munster group over here, Leinster group over here, or Ulster or Connacht guys. So I think they're just all one now, and I think that benefits the Irish team.
So you came into it in the late 90s. You were saying a bit earlier that your first time to play against Leinster was 97, I think. So that hatred, let's call it, because that's the word that's been used this week, was that something that was with you before you came into that dressing room, or was that something that the Claw or somebody had to take you aside and go, listen, here's the story?
Yeah, it's something probably you learn about the rivalry, I think, but even playing underage, like, I played on Munster under 18s, you play Leinster under 18s, it's a rival, it's a derby match effectively, so you kind of grow up with that a little bit, and it's parochial. It's the same in the GA. You play the neighbours in the village next door, you want to beat them. It's not about hatred. I think hatred's a very strong word. It's about getting the bragging rights, beating the neighbours, not letting them walk around with their chest held high, chest out, if you like. So it's not. I think hatred is a very strong word, but it's kind of that bite, I would say, even amongst the fans. I remember my sister telling me one time she went to a game in the RDS, and the things she heard people say about me in the field, which maybe some were justified or unjustified, I don't know.
What sort of stuff?
Just abusive stuff, you know what I mean? And like, I remember going to the Heineken Cup semi-final in 2006 in Lansdowne Road, being on the bus, and I was injured at the time, but I remember looking out at some of the fans and the gestures from people towards us. So it wasn't just the players; it was just a big rivalry. And I think maybe with Leinster winning Heineken Cups and probably surpassing Munster, it's all just calmed down a bit now, and there's always a respect there, and I think that's important. You go back to the team, I played against Victor Costello and Reggie and Shane Byrne and all these guys. We had some great nights out together. We had brilliant fun together. We kicked the crap out of each other back in the 90s, and obviously if you go into the 2000s and carries on, and Drico and Shaggy and all these guys, they were guys that we were with all the time in the Ireland squad, so we had some great fun with them as well, and vice versa. But I think there was an envy there that maybe we'd won the Heineken Cups, and that kind of ramped up around that 2008, 2009, 2010 period, and that's where it got a bit
feisty.
Yeah, it got feisty.
Does it get mentioned when you come back, like Rob Kearney was talking about nowadays, when they go back into the camp, it's just not mentioned, the game is not mentioned, because you don't want to be, and he's a different dynamic.
He's a great man to speak about it, because he's seen kind of a journey over 12 years, the way it's kind of, the way it was, the way it is now, and it's probably not the best for the fans, like, and I think, but it's best for Ireland. You look at Munster have won in the last 7, which kind of dilutes it a little bit. If they're going tit for tat, one wins, one there, they share over and back, they're really tight games. So it's because Leinster are probably so good now at the moment. And I think maybe if Munster closed that gap, and that's what they're trying to do, and to be fair, they have been behind them for the last number of years, but everybody has, haven't they? To be fair to them. And so if Munster were going to get a result there, then that creates a bit of a bite for Christmas, for the Derby game at Christmas. So it's just, I don't know.
So, like, on that, where Johan van Graan has almost been talking about it this week, about, like, it's hard to know where Munster are at, because even the last 3 weeks we've been discussing them, we've been sort of doing a bit of this. Where are they at?
It's a good question, and if he doesn't know, I don't know. Their away form has been poor. So the great start, looked brilliant against the Cheetahs first game. And that's the issue with the league. Sometimes we don't know what kind of teams are being sent, the away form, and it's understandable a little bit for the first few weeks. Coaches are trying to give different players games, manage their squads. They had a very strong win at the start, then really poor first half in Glasgow. Great reaction. So you come off in Glasgow and you think you can learn a lot from that, because the performance in the second half was so much better. I think the Ospreys then, that was a really good positive result as well. Very cohesive on the front foot, weaker Ospreys side. And then they go to Cardiff with that optimism, and you were slagging me a few weeks ago. I genuinely thought, on paper, you're getting close now to a really good, strong, settled side who looks really good, that can perform in Europe, that maybe could potentially be better than last year, and a real good feel to the side. And then they were horrendous in Cardiff by their own admission. They're eating 37-13. They beat a really bad Ulster team last week, but it was a very good performance from Munster and a really kind of poor performance from Ulster. So it's hard to judge. I think you can judge them better tomorrow, and that's what I'm saying is, even if they don't get the result tomorrow, which at this stage it's very difficult to go and beat Leinster in Dublin now, or beat them anywhere at that stage. They've got to walk out of the Aviva tomorrow, even if they lose the game, and say, look, there's a lot of positives there. We scored a couple of tries. Our set piece was good. defensively we were strong and we competed. And then you've something to measure on going to Exeter next week and something to build on. If they come out of there, which I don't think they will, I think the game will be tight, to be fair. It'll probably be a similar contest to that Pro 14 semi-final back in May, which I thought Munster were unlucky. They were very good in that game and a little bit more clinical. And the one thing when you play Leinster, their defence is so strong. If you create 2-3 opportunities in the game, you've got to at least take something out of those. And Munster created a lot last year and just didn't execute in the ends. So it's understandable with him saying he's not sure where they're at as well, because as a coach you judge the performances and it's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster.
Let's take a quick look at the fixtures live on Air Sport over the next couple of days. Ulster Connacht, that game is tonight, 7:35 start there at Air Sport 1, the same channel then. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Leinster against Munster. And we look forward to all of that good stuff. Few comments, lots of comments coming in, I should say. Owen Quinn, who's in touch on Periscope, says, can you ask Quinny if he thinks Carberry will be in for special treatment from the Leinster players should he play this weekend?
Absolutely. If I was playing against him, I'd try and go after him and put pressure on him. And I think Sean O'Brien, Dan Levy, these guys, and that's what you do to the opposition fly half. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays. Can he? I think he can withstand that kind of pressure. He's a top quality player, and he will need protection from his back row if that's the case.
Yeah, a bit of an exchange here on YouTube with these next couple. Bookworm, first of all, if Munster hope to get anything from the game, they'll need to produce a much improved performance with regard to their skill set in attack and their tenacity in defence. And then Raj Magoo replied, ha ha ha, they scored 9 tries, mate. Did you want 20? Is that enough for Leinster? I mean, this is what happens on YouTube, Quinny. It turns out you get a lot of...
they scored 9 tries against Ulster, and they were brilliant. But let's see if they can do it tomorrow. I hope to do, for obvious reasons. I hope to do, and I think Munster beating Leinster might be good for the game.
I bet you do.
Well, we're still trying to figure out which side of the river. Yeah,
it has to be good from a neutral perspective. Munster beating Leinster tomorrow, no?
Yeah.
Because that way, next time, say we're in this same situation next year, 1 week out from the European fixtures. Leinster, they came up and beat us in our own backyard last year. There's no way we're playing a second string team.
Listen, the two Munster lads saying that it'd be great for rugby if Munster beat Leinster. I'm not getting on board with that. Adrian and Eoin on Twitter says, hopefully strong squads from both the teams will be named. Paul Gillen, a lot of talk about the Pro 14 teams smashing other teams and it negatively impacting on fan turnout, but the Premiership is arguably the biggest league in the world and have had this for years. Thoughts?
Have what for years?
Premier League, I presume he means.
The Rugby Premiership, I'm sure.
49,000 at a fixture in the Aviva Premiership.
Premiership's not the biggest rugby league in the world, is it?
No, it's very popular in fairness, and it's very consistent, and there's a lot of, but some of the grounds are pretty small and there's not huge numbers. The Northamptons, Leicesters of this world, Gloucesters, they can get 15,000, 20,000 at the game.
Probably is the biggest rugby union league.
It's very consistent, and there's
Super Rugby, no?
No, I think the Aviva Premiership probably is.
A couple more here. Sam MacDonald, YouTube. The reason the edge has gone out of the Leinster-Munster clash is due to squad rotation. Our friendships between the provinces, the rivalry is gone because they're no longer knocking us out of finals. So some other stuff there, but that is a flavour of what's going on. Obviously, Ulster Connacht tonight. We've spoken a good bit about Connacht.
58 years they haven't won there, so they got out muscled last week by Leinster in Galway, and so they're going to face a strong Ulster side. Ulster were missing a lot of players last week. Rory Best is back, Jared, Jacob Stockdale. So it's kind of like where Munster at, where Ulster at. I think they beat Edinburgh and Scarlets at home in the first 2 fixtures with late John Cooney penalties. They could easily have been losses. So I don't know where they're at the moment themselves. A draw and a win in South Africa, maybe that fatigued them a little bit, and obviously for Dan McFarland, he made a lot of changes. But I think if Connacht hold on to the ball, and this is a very kind of probably obvious statement, their skill set this year has excited me, and I think if they can take Ulster, move them around the field and hold on to the ball, they have the potential to maybe cause an upset there tonight. But we'll wait and see in that one. 58 years.
Champions Cup goodness to get into next week, Quinny, which I'm very much looking forward to. Thanks a million. Enjoy your weekend. Alan Quinlan is always with us on a Friday.